Everyone plays games, not just kids. Even adults play with money, like when gambling or with stocks. Without games, we'd have a pretty dull society. Think about it. What wouldn't be a game? Because the definition of a game is a physical or mental competition conducted according to rules with the participants in direct opposition to each other. And that includes sports, politics, racing, and the stock market. I'd like to add to that definition that the thrill of not knowing who's going to win makes the experience more exciting for everyone. That is one of the reasons I love games. The history, the inspiration, the thing that started it all. My inspiration for my quest came from a lot of places, but the thing that inspired me the most are all games, from board games to video games. One day, as I was watching YouTube, I bumped into a video about coding. Since then, I watched so many of these coding videos that my interest grew into this topic. From this newfound interest, I wanted to go deeper. I found my bearings in the coding language of C++ and the game engine of Unity. I decided to test the waters myself, and here I am with my quest, putting my coding skills to the test to make a video game. During the time I got to work on my quest, I was also researching the history behind video games. And I found a whole new world. This world is full of amazing things that might not seem interesting on the surface, but to me, it was like exploring the unknown, seeing the strangest things, and finding things that I thought never existed. Like a gaming crisis in 1983. You don't usually hear those two words together, but it happened. The problem. I wanted to make a game that helped solve an environmental problem, but I didn't just want to make a simple educational game. I wanted to make a game that people would learn from and have fun with. I thought it would make sense to teach something that people don't know about. This gave me the idea to teach about electricity, because I think that everyone in the Green School community doesn't have an in-depth knowledge about affordable and clean energy, especially the younger members of our community. As I researched more about electricity, I uncovered a deeper issue. Did you know a computer emits 175 kilograms of CO2 yearly? And in 2019, according to Statistica, 71% of households have computers. And that's a total of more than 3.6 billion people with computers, creating more than 639 billion kilograms of CO2 yearly. Just imagine that, 639 million tons of CO2, which weighs the same as 100 million African elephants. So, how do I match my passion for coding with making people more aware about electricity? If you couldn't tell, these two things contradict each other, because I want to teach about not using too much electricity while playing on your computer. My solution to this contradiction was to create a measuring meter that tells you how much electricity you are using. My first decision for this specific quest was some form of game, because I always liked games and I wanted to follow in my older brother's footsteps. But I wanted to do something ambitious, something that people haven't done before for their quest. And what's a game that people haven't done before for their quest? A video game. And at this time, I thought it'd be easy, but I was very wrong, because at the time, I thought it was just moving images and code. And it is that to some extent. My second decision. It was to make it 2D or 3D, because they each had their pros and cons. 3D was harder and comes with more things to do, and 2D is simpler, but I find it to be less indulgent. So I went with 3D. But this decision had more depth, because this would determine how my game would work. And while I was making this decision, I was getting bits and pieces of what this game would be. And by the end, I decided that this would be a 3D parkour game. And if you don't know what parkour is, it just means you run and jump on top and around buildings. My third and final decision, how will this help? I came to the conclusion that this will teach people how to conserve electricity and make them more aware. So, what is the result? What is the product? What came out of all of this? Well, an entertaining and informative video game. The game is still under development, but I want to continue working on it. So, you might ask, what's in this game? This game has 5 main aspects, as shown here, and they are sound effects, menus, levels, graphics, and the conclusion. For the music or the sound effects, You will find sound effects, menu music, background music, which are all well in the works and well in progress, but I find it more difficult than I anticipated. The menus. I made a lot of menus with the help of tutorials, and without tutorials, coding for me would have been almost impossible. But thanks to these videos, coding can be very easy. I made 4 tutorials, each serving their own purpose, like the starting menu to show you where to go when you start playing, the options menu to make the game more for you, the winning page so you can celebrate your victory, and the losing page so you can work on your skills. I made 3 levels, but they need more detail. These levels go from easy, normal to hard. The first level is the tutorial, and it's meant to teach you about the movement of my game. And the second level is the tryout. It's where you first test the skills that you've learned. And the third level is called the challenge, because it's the hardest level so far, and it's meant for you to test the skills that you've learned. The graphics. It's what makes the game look more immersive. This part is more for the detail, like the minor things. The more you add into the graphics, the more you make the game look interesting and intriguing. Some examples of this would be parked bicycles or windows on a building. These really help attract the player's attention and keep it during the game. Last but not least, the conclusion of the game. This uses menus and sound effects to bring you to different levels and end the game. For the future, I plan to add a bar to tell you when you are using too much electricity, sounds for when you move around, and better animations for the character while you play the game. In closing, creating a game is more than just coding. There's a lot of planning involved, and I want to thank the Quest teachers and PECZAC for giving me the tools that I can use for the future developments on my game. I've learned how to integrate aspects of art, coding, and storytelling to get my message out on energy conservation. Collectively, we have to work together to solve the issues we face today. My game is about running. It's about getting information from one location to another. It's a story, one that we've talked about for years now, and after many conferences, we're still trying to figure this out. I know my project isn't complete, but I don't want to rush the story. I've put into place so many pieces, and I'm happy with what I have. I've coded a game. I've created a story. I've pushed a message that I feel we can all agree on. Maybe in the future, you'll see a sequel to my game. You'll see my code, my message, my story is still running. Thank you.